Karl, I was never monetized.
Oh, there we go. Oh look, I'm a floating rock. Look at the shadows.
Oh yeah, why don't you have a shadow?
I don't know who made this avatar, but they made the shader to not cast any shadows for some reason.
I kind of wish I didn't cast goofy ass lanky shadows sometimes.
But it also depends on the volt direction of light as well. How slim your shadows are specifically, it depends on the volt as well. So maybe go ahead and look at the video as I listen. Bring this rock close. Shows an image of the past. Yeah, you can see that it used to be a whole forest for itself. Very green. And the sky, you can see the sky. You can hear the little critters and birds and animals in the background, how the forest sounded like. So that's an image of the past. And if you put the rock next to these flowers, they start growing up, or getting up rather. One of them helps the other one to get up, and they grow together. Oh, time to watch this again, 2 minutes of our lives. Some hope. Things can grow back. And if you take this rock out, it goes back to how it used to be. flowers close, but they don't go down again, so they did a permanent thing. Now let's bring that rock back and talk about how this window represents the oh god, how am I even gonna explain this? Okay, so this window is a relic of the architect, and if you see, it's very reflective. It is not so transparent as a window should be. And the reason for that is because it's representing, well, it's a window, so it's creating a space between two sides, and the two sides in this instance are these two countries who attacked each other in this war. But it could be taken as the barrier not only between nations but between people or groups of people, like this Discord server and that Discord server that disagree with each other, or me and two people, or anything, a group of people. This is a barrier between them. They have their own thoughts and their own beliefs, and they can't cooperate because of these differences. And the way to cooperate is, of course, to not have that barrier, to be able to see each other, hear each other properly. But to be able to do that, this barrier has to be removed somehow. The way you remove this barrier kind of defines how your relationship with the other side will last, or where it's going. And I've shown two ways of that happening here. Some of these panels are broken completely, as if somebody punched through it, and one of them is slightly cracked. You can see the other side. And the main thing is that this broken part is only broken from one side. If you look at it from the other side, it just looks fine. But the cracked one is cracked from both sides, so it is actually. Now, this means a very philosophical thing. The way you go about understanding someone else can usually go two ways, one of the two ways. Most people go the easy way of trying to do it quickly and efficiently, because nobody wants to spend too much effort having memories or having moments with someone, so that it would lead over time naturally towards a strong friendship or relationship or anything. Most people want to have that quickly now, especially in our day age, as things get quicker and quicker. The need for everything to happen quickly is just increased naturally overall in everything. And you can relate to this on any level if you're a... Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that, I'm back. Yeah, so you can relate to this if you're a politician, if you're one side of a couple, if you're just friends with someone. There's always you trying to understand the other side and communicate, but there's always this barrier, and sometimes you try to hack at this barrier and get rid of it, but you might go too far and just punch through it and offend the other side by saying something, or by trying to impose your own ideas or ideals on them, which they might not like, and in a way make them like you, so you can work together, sort of. But that of course doesn't work, because who likes to lose everything they believe in overnight, Maybe the other side is flawed, and maybe they would be better if they come to your side, but nobody likes to do that overnight. Of course, that's a transition that has to happen over time, so they can trust you, so they can know that they can come to your side and you would be there for them. But this is what most things don't get when they try to interact. I'm saying things because it's not just people who interact, it's everything. So most people who interact with each other don't get this part that they have to show some things, they have to show respect, they have to appreciate the other side for what it is first. So it would open up, so it would do the same thing for you. So it would come to your side as much as you're going to its side. And you would find a balanced middle ground. But that's not happened here. What's happened is that that side of this war launched nukes, which is a horrible act, and it creates this anger, it creates this feeling that you do not want to have anything to do with the other side. How would these two people of these two sides ever go back to being working together if something like this has happened? They're going to hate each other forever. So while this side thinks that they are the conquerors and they have broken this glass, the other side does not believe in that. It creates this split in reality. There's these two people, whoever is the remains of them, and each side thinks that they are correct, but they're both wrong, and it creates this illusion. And not only it doesn't help with communication, it makes it even worse. Whoever is born on this side will probably be taught that the other side is evil, and same with the other side. Now you can think of it not in a nuclear war scenario, you could think of it in a normal conventional war where people don't go extinct afterwards. New people are born and they are taught things. That's how the split is not helpful. When these like acts of aggression happen, acts of suddenly quickly trying to gain control happen, as you can see, it can just be lies, it can mean nothing. Because the light here is coming through, meaning the world is destroyed, so that lie doesn't even matter. Whether you believe in it or not, the light is coming through and its effects are there. It's just some propaganda of some sort, you could say. And again, things we see in real life every day. And what's different about this thing over here, the crack, is that because you do this over time, you take your time to know the other side, you give them the opportunity to be themselves, and you understand them, you appreciate them, you give them the time to trust you. Because you do this little by little, you take out pieces of this glass instead of breaking it. It gives the opportunity to have a peek at the other side. You can see them and start communicating little by little until this whole thing is removed and you meet in the middle. This works most of the time because most people need this time to adjust. But of course it is the harder solution because it takes time and effort. You have to create memories, you have to have spent so much time with each other that you have things to remember each other by. That doesn't happen usually with that. You just create a bad memory that like you might have one interaction with someone randomly and they might do something like that to you and you will always remember them for that one interaction. You might always remember them as this like guy who ruined your life. But in something like this, yes, we'd make mistakes. It will be remembered for good memories as well as bad memories. So it will last longer while that will end. And that's what this mirror taught here. The architect made this to, in a way, reflect the decisions and actions of people. Somebody over here tried to do this, somebody over there tried to do that. Yeah, that's what this talks about. Let's move on to another spot. By the way, feel free to comment on anything if you want.
I feel like anything I add would not add anything of value at this point. It's too much.
It's alright, it's alright. I mean, we're not just adding value to it, we're also going through this journey. So yeah, feel free to comment whenever you want. Here's the next landmark where we can get a glimpse.
Oh dear. Is that marching sound from
There
something?
used to be Well, the audio itself is made of three things that are brought together from different places.
Did you record it yourself or
The
was it
marching.
from something?
No, of course I didn't. I wish I recorded myself, but no, I fashioned it, so if you will, out of a bunch of different tracks. Most of the audio is full that I have just edited and made. But anyways, an army used to march in this place, and the war happened, and that's what we're hearing. No. Something horrible happened here as well, and that's why the spiritual weight of that horrible event was captured here, and now we can listen to it. The thing that happened was, after it was confirmed the war was happening, the nuclear war, the thing that was going to end everything, the government of this side decided to send their soldiers to the front lines, which wouldn't achieve anything, because it's a nuclear war, they're all going to die anyways. It's not going to change anything, but they anyway, because to save their own image, to not be looked at as the losing side at the end of the world, where no one even is going to remain afterwards to judge them for being the loser. These people were so grasped with their ego and the image of themselves that they wanted to project, that even at the end of the world where they knew that it is all gone, they lied to themselves that it's not over, and they sent all these people to the front lines, got them all killed, just to have that satisfaction that they've done something and they weren't the loser ones. And that's just how terrible us humans can get. Things like this has happened in real life as well, where they send, for no reason, just for like an image of themselves, they send people to be killed, because that would make them look in a certain way. So that's just showing how we're too stubborn to give up, even when everything is going to end. That's what happened here, and the marching sound is looping, not because of aesthetics only, because there were so many people who died that this sound can loop for a very long time before it stops, for it to represent all individual people that were marching here. That's what happened there. Sometimes when I give this tour, some people get really uncomfortable with that area, which is understandable. It reminds people of things. So yeah, I guess that means that the way I'm telling this story can be quite touching, which I'm glad about.
I feel like the whole story would be a bit uncomfortable at that point, but it's important, if anything.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole FFCR project, I had these ideas in my mind. I think I told you already the way I designed this. I had these landmark ideas in my mind that they each talked about something, a problem or an occurrence that happens in our world. And I wanted to talk about them in a visual environment like this instead of in front of a mirror in VrChat, where people would listen and be like, oh yeah, all right. But nobody would remember it 10 seconds afterwards, conversation would change. So this whole thing is kind of a conversation that is a bit more long-lasting in a way than just having it out of nowhere. Because here you have these visuals, you have these audios that imply things, give these emotions. So it's a good way of having this sort of conversation where you want somebody to really think about the implications of something, about how this world is, about how something is unfair. For that to really leave an impact, I thought I should put a lot of effort into making it seem like it actually happened here. So when I talk about it wasn't really about making this cool story. It was more about me wanting to talk about these. So it came to be this conversation like this. And it made sense because at first I had made this whole thing for my group of friends, which I wanted to like bring here and like help them get closer together, help them become open-minded and everything. So this was going to achieve that for that group of people. I was kind of being like the architect myself.
I know there are like aspects of your quotes being in this world as well.
Oh, the notes?
I like that tree over there that I was going to point out later.
Yeah, the notes are here, and in this story, they are the notes of the architect, because I wanted to also talk about how this architect wasn't the hero or anything like that. He was just an ordinary person as well. He had this idea of helping, and he did what he could, but at the same time, he had problems as well. He was somebody who needed people as well. He wasn't this perfect person. So, alongside his creations, he left these notes to reach out to somebody. Maybe somebody could help him as well. Because usually what happened in this world was that he was seen as this, how can you be so good when the world is so bad kind of person. And he was praised for that. And people would take his advice, people would use what he had to offer, these machines and everything, but they would forget about him personally. And they would move on from him personally, which he was okay with, but well, that got to him over time, and he felt really alone. And that's why he left this thing of himself in his creations to see if somebody would notice them and reach out to him. And yeah, that's why actually one of the landmarks talks about that as well. We'll get to it. But the third place this rock does something is this first. Let's go activate the sounds first. Now bring the rock. Changes the speed and the pitch.
It's a very well done effect.
Yeah, and what it does is kind of helps you hear a bit better that these are a bunch of voices and it's not actually music. It's just orchestral voices that are faded in a way that sounds like music when it's slowed down. And the voices are the voice of nature saying a bunch of stuff, which is the message. It's trying to get that message across. But as I talked about before, the act of listening to this is your care and effort. And by bringing the rock here, you're putting more care towards understanding this nature, which is this that you brought with yourself. And now nature will remember that you cared for it, really, and it will help you throughout this journey. It doesn't mean anything in the literal puzzle of this world, but it's just part of the story that you can imagine that when you care about something, it cares back for you as well. So, yeah, it's just something nice you can do. All right. enough introductions, I think. Oh dear. Yeah, that was a long introduction. That's the first place where you start solving the puzzle. And it is a machine that the architect made again, but this time he left a piece of himself in it. We'll see in a second.
I know people typically aren't a fan of this part.
Yeah, it gets a bit emotional. There's this dragonfly inside the tube, connected to this boiler sort of thing. And at the end of that tube is the piece of the sign. The key to finishing that group and the thing that is needed for that to happen, the magic of the whole thing. And to get that, a sort of sacrifice has to be made. And that's where I said he put part of himself in this machine. This machine has this sound, it's like a whistle in the background. It's the ambience of it. And if you listen to it, it implies this sort of a feeling that it's waiting for something to happen. The sort of pitch and the whistle that it is along with the wind, it implies that it's been here. This machine and this dragonfly have been here for a while, for a long time. In fact, waiting for something, someone to change the state of things, to make a decision, to go through with something. And that decision is to put the rock inside the boiler and make it work. Which we're going to make. You can do the honors. The radiation gets concentrated into that thing, it boils the water, and the machine works. Can try and save it. If you bring out the rock, it stops it.
Kind of feels like we just prolonged his panic.
Sadly, the fact is that it is always going to be in stress and it's never going to have rest again. So the best thing to do at this point is to go through with the decision, even though it's a bad thing that we're doing. Make sure that you can't halfway through your decision and you have to make it if you decide. You didn't want to have a way out of it for yourself. Connections. Now, he had to sacrifice part of himself to achieve that, to achieve this thing that he achieved of bringing people together. And it's not literally part of him being crushed in this machine. The dragonfly is a metaphor for his efforts and how much of his time and health and sanity and everything of himself that he had to sacrifice for making that happen, and how it didn't get really recognized on a personal level. Yes, he was thanked for it, but nobody really stayed with him for doing any of that. And he was kind of left alone after doing all the things he did. So he created this machine that every time you take this thing out of it, it shows you how horrible it felt for him to go through everything that he went through to achieve all of this. And that dragonfly being in distress and not being able to save it is him not wanting to have a way out of his decision, to make sure that even if he suffers through it, it gets done, and the thing that needs to happen ends up happening. And afterwards that it happens, so much of his energy is lost that he becomes stale and numb, and that's why color changes to this color. In a way, he became a very sad and depressed person. Even though he was helping everybody, he himself was going in the opposite direction, and nobody ever noticed that, because how could that person who's helping everybody himself be depressed or need help? So yeah, he was kind of ignored in that regards, and he cried out for help many times by putting himself in his own creations in such a way, representing himself, putting the notes literally, but yeah, ignorance of people and such. He was forgotten at the end. Oh, let me bring the rock actually. Let's keep going. I'm going to reside with nature with this rock until we need it again. After you do that, the actual journey or puzzle in the map is visible, and it is to go back to all of these landmarks and notice something new in them, or think back at them, reflect back at them, learn something new about them, and we'll see what that actually means if you go back there.
Do you feel like there's a specific order to see them in?
Actually, there's not. Except for the last 3 ones. Most of them you can visit in any order you want. Yeah, there are candles now, which you can interpret as the light in the path, the next point in the path that you have to go through. And they have to be blown out. And they just bring you back to landmarks. So it isn't just some piece of lore that you take and you don't think about again. come back to it and you reflect for a second again on the thing that this represented. Don't forget about the sufferings and misery of this war. Some of them just blow out, some of them have Morse code on them and a different kind of audio that just tries to convey something new about that location.
Do you know what the Morse code says on them offhand?
Yeah, I know. But I will leave that to people's imagination and effort to figure out.
Okay.
I'm sure that's what the architect would have wanted anyways. I guess the path of the architect's religion that we have to follow. There's the next guy. When you go inside this thing, the audio has a reverb effect. It used to also do it to the player voices, but it doesn't do that anymore. Now there's a place where you can observe the progress of this puzzle over there behind the cliffs. These lonely chairs throughout the world are places of reflection for the architect who would come and sit to think.
Do you want to talk about...
We have 3 out of...
I was going to say, do you want to talk about the difference in avatars and the blurring effect?
Oh yeah, so that's me. It used to be the avatar I had before it got deleted. And I always blur my picture out of any picture that I put involved in VrChat. So if you ever see that, that's me. And now I've been using this avatar for a year. Sadly, that one got deleted.
I didn't even know that it got deleted. I thought it was a choice.
No, it was deleted, then I had to use this one, and I got used to this one. So 3 out of 12. 9 left. And when you get all of them, you can use this button. They're like some sort of a receiver. Little sub-lore for this table. The last remaining human came to get this piece of rock so they could take the same journey as we are. They weren't immune to this radiation. And when they opened the drawer, the accumulated radiation of the many years of that rock being in there got to them instantly. And they died right then and there before they could even take it out. So as they were falling down, they clenched their hands on this key and it came out halfway. And they just fell somewhere around here and died. Yeah, just a bit of environment storytelling.
Have you considered writing a book at all?
One time I said that. I never thought this kind of story would actually be interesting, so I'm quite surprised anybody even likes it. Because it's like just a bunch of strings of things that are not that much connected. It's like, yeah, that happened, but how does that connect with the factory part, you know? It doesn't really, it's just like many events in the same world. It makes sense if you look at it as if all of these are part of a bigger world and they don't necessarily go along with each other in one journey. There's many things in this world going on. It all makes sense in that sort of regards, and I think it's a decent story in that regards, but most stories are like following one character, you know, that kind of thing. I don't think it would be good in that kind of a story. I mean, yeah, there's the architect, but even his thing isn't like, you can go to each of these and he has like a memory and an event has happened with him and each of these places, but they don't have a specific order. It's like all this exists at the same time in a way in this story. You can go to any of it and start to talk about it, and it doesn't really need any other part for it to make sense. So I don't know what kind of storytelling that is, but I don't think it would turn out really good as a book.
I imagine, because I'm not a large science fiction book reader, but I know that in that genre, those kinds of stories are told a lot where the world is a lot more important than the characters in it.
Mm.
And this certainly would fit into that genre.
Yeah, I'm personally a fan of kind of storytelling as well. So we have a candle up there. If we can turn this, but the architect was predicting that most people would just run towards the candle because they would think that I'm gonna lose my chance if I don't run to it and get it right now as it gets down. But that was the thing, that was the test. Because there's a second lever in the shadows that if you wait, it comes down. If you wait and observe, you get the opportunity to stop it. And only if you stop it and then go to it, you'll get an extra thing that happens. Only if you do this. Otherwise, it just keeps spinning. This candle, it makes a really heavy noise. and it starts spinning on its own, as if some force that I don't know has a grasp on things. Oh, and the cube appeared. Look at that. It's the cube that resists change. It tries to stick to the surface for as long as it can. It keeps falling, but it doesn't give up, and it keeps doing that. It's a very stubborn cube. It doesn't like change. Let's stop this, and oh, there it goes. Random cube. Also, I don't know if this is a talent or is it just lazy storytelling. That, oh, this cube is very resistant to change. Like, I know it's a cool thing that is like sticking to the surface, but I don't really know if that's a good story. So that's one reason why I don't put like notes that explain all this stuff, because I feel like it's not a good story to read. Like, if I'm putting it here with my own voice and putting the emotion in my storytelling, that kind of makes sense, but maybe it's not the best to just have like a note that has all this written on it, like a story or a book of FFCR. So that's why I personally give tours of this. I've given like 400 by now. I personally give tours of this to just give the specific experience to the few people who want to like experience it. I don't think it does well as a broad experience that you can really just like have and get all this outfit on your own. This probably should be somebody giving you the tour and explaining you like this. It works best like that, I think. So here's the next candle. And when you blow it out, it reveals the true nature of the structure. This is like two bridges that are connecting on this very thin line right here. If you look at it from the outside. And bridges are usually another icon of two sides connecting. So this structure represents the communication hub or center between these two nations, between their governments, politicians, people, anything really, anything that went through between these two nations, as information would go through here. That's why there was this rumbling noise of like electrical current It's like the information going through is so much that it makes that noise. And it seems alive. It seems filled with all sorts of transmissions of information. But in reality, that was just the illusion of it remaining here. The reality after you blow this out is that it's hollow now. It's just wind going through it. So that's what some of these candles do that you blow them out. They reveal some reality. Two of them are in the house. Creepy wind. Yeah, I think the architect put that there because he was a fan of sitting in dark corners like this, where he couldn't be seen but he could observe others. Yeah, he was quite the fan of that idea in general, of being in places where he could observe others without being seen. Our butterfly friend is still there.